how we did these presentations to make sure that they're all suitable and we're delivering the best thing that we can here. So I'm just gonna share my screen and we're gonna get this gonna get the show on the road. And there is a link in the chat. Yuvika, I think you joined a few minutes later, so I'm just gonna post a link in the chat here. Basically our Calendly link if you want to book a call with us. You can see my screen, right, Carmelo?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right. So thanks guys for connecting today. We're really excited about this. Carmelo and I take a lot of pride in building relationships in our business, and this is a huge part of it, is putting on these conferences and webinars and providing information and guidance to participants, and just continuously adding value. It's all about giving in our business.
Yep. So Alex, you can talk about yourself first, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm a real estate agent with Remax Condos Plus in downtown Toronto. Condos is my forte and specialty, because even prior to getting into real estate, I have been in Toronto's condominium market and industry for over a decade. I was in a senior executive leadership team of a service provider that worked specifically with condominiums. Through this, I have gained a very intimate and in-depth knowledge and understanding of the condominium space. I don't believe that all condominiums are made equal. There are a lot of differences in condominiums. I have an in-depth understanding of the market. I mean, I also have my just a 10-year ACMO pin there. So I've been a 10-year member of the Association of Condominium Managers of Ontario.
Well done, Alex.
Thanks. Over that decade, I've conducted over 65 condominium assessments. I've probably been inside, I would say 90% of all condos in GTA proper, either to provide services, do a walk around, a risk assessment, bid for a contract, meet with board members. And I've also been a real estate investor since 2013. I have a portfolio that's both in Alberta and in Ontario as well. I've leveraged my own real estate that I've owned for personal uses to then further grow that portfolio and buy investment properties as well. That's not something that we'll necessarily be covering in this webinar, but definitely if you want to connect with either Carmelo or myself, we can share about how to do that. I mean, the main thing is just getting started and getting your foot in the door. And relationships over transactions, this has been a foundation of my business. It's my business model, my mission statement. It's my pillar. Whenever I think about anything related to my business or the way that I interact with my clients, I always put the relationship first, because that's how you build a sustainable business. It's not about jumping from transaction to transaction. Carmelo, maybe a bit about you.
Sure. I'm Carmelo Buttice. I'm a mortgage agent at yourmortgageyourway.ca. I've been doing mortgages for way too long, doing it for over 2 decades. Not that I like to date myself. I actually began my career as a mortgage underwriter, working for one of the big banks, and that was probably the best move and what really got me attracted to this industry. I learned as an underwriter what the banks think, how they view things, and what they look for to approve you for a mortgage. Starting my career there, doing that, became extremely valuable, because I worked for the big banks, I worked for smaller alternative lenders, and now I'm independent. So I have no loyalty to any one bank. I work for you, not the bank. Last year, the company I work with, Your Mortgage Your Way, we use 59 different lenders. That's from the big banks to the monoline lenders, credit unions, trust companies, A lenders, B lenders, C lenders, private. I have access to all of them, and I've worked with a lot of them. So there's a lot of flexibility out there, and there's a lot more options than just the big 5 that everyone knows. A little more about myself personally. I'd like to think myself as a part-time philanthropist. I do a lot of charity work. I did Habitat for Humanity in Africa. I went to the Dominican Republic for 10 years in a row, did work there. And just last year alone, I took the adventure of my lifetime. I traveled to Nepal, climbed to Mount Everest Base Camp, and during that journey, I raised $12,000 for Make-A-Wish Canada to make some kids' dreams come true.
Nice.
So that's a little bit about me, and I guess now let's talk about the process.
Right. So, here's the kind of the steps. I'll do a bit of a high level overview, and then we can go a little bit into details. The first step in the buying process is, getting a mortgage pre-approval. But as Carmelo is going to say, it's actually more of a pre-qualification, because you want to know, what you're working with, but also what is a comfortable budget for you as well, so that you can, that's sustainable long term. We'll talk a little bit about searching for the right property and making sure that, we're also putting in a valid offer as well that protects your interests as a buyer. We'll talk about getting a formal mortgage approval, because, the pre-approval and the formal mortgage approval are two very different things. The lenders want to see the property that they're actually approving the financing on, and that's why it's actually comes after you have successfully had an offer accepted. There's a waiting period as well as you go towards closing, and then also what to expect on closing date and getting keys, and kind of all the after the offer parts of the process.
Well, the first step is, again, everyone talks about, calls it mortgage pre-approval. I call it mortgage qualifications, because the banks look for 4 things to actually approve you. First, again, down payment. Have money for down payment, closing costs. So they want to see your bank statements, where you have your money saved. If money is coming from family members in the form of a gift, we don't need that up front, but we do need to provide the explanation of, okay, you have this much money. This much money comes from a brother, sister, a grandparent, or so on and so forth. With the mortgage qualifications, there's like a mortgage financing. The bank's going to want to see your employment documents. So whether you're self-employed, they're going to look for your tax returns, salary employee, job letter, pay stubs. They're going to want to see how much money you make, because that's going to determine the amount of money you're going to receive as a mortgage. Everyone's always afraid of a credit check. Credit checks are not bad. The credit checks do not change your credit score. It's just one check. My one credit check is acceptable by all my banks, and it's good for 30 days. So you don't have to really worry about multiple credit checks going to different banks on your own. To get a pre-approval mortgage qualification, credit check is required. Mm-hmm. With all that, the banks review everything. I talk to them, and we come back, okay, you qualify for a mortgage of $4, $5, $6, $1 million. The reason why I call it mortgage qualifications versus approval, because one of the items the banks require to actually approve you is they need to know what property you're buying. That's their collateral. So without knowing what their collateral is, they don't necessarily write blank checks, because there is a difference, for example, buying a $500,000 condo downtown Toronto and maybe buying a 500,000 acreage up in Thunder Bay. 2 different markets, 2 different properties. They won't look at it the same. Yep. Pre-approvals, again, they're valid based on assuming there's no any changes. If I know people sometimes when they're pre-approved, they call me and they say, I changed jobs. Well, if you change jobs, we have to update that information. So the pre-approval is really valid based on assuming there's no real changes. I can get you a rate hold for up to 4 months, and that's really just what that does, is hold the rate. So you could get a pre-approval rate hold, but if you change jobs, you may make more money. You could qualify for a larger mortgage. Yep. I hope that answers your question. And next step really, because once you know what your budget is, that's what the first part is, knowing what your budget is. Then, Alex, I pass the baton back to you.
Yep. We start searching and looking for a condo. So, one of the reasons why we focus on condos in these presentations is because Toronto is basically one of the top condominium markets in the world. I mean, at one point, per capita, we had more condos than New York, than Hong Kong. We were literally the #1 condo market globally. This is the lowest price point for home ownership. So most buyers get into home ownership through condos, And then we can also talk about how do you scale that up? Like, how do you get from owning a condo to owning that detached house? There's generally less maintenance. It's a lot more hands off. You do pay maintenance fees, but you don't have to worry about things like shoveling the driveway or mowing the lawn. Even if it's a condo townhouse, maintenance fees cover these types of expenses for you. It's basically you're just responsible for what's inside your unit, what's inside of your unit walls. In 2022, the GTA has experienced a rate increase of almost 25%. I think it's actually maybe a little bit higher than that, depending on the locations and the types of properties. And this was basically because of COVID. Like, a lot of people left the GTA when COVID started. This drove rents to go down because there was more supply than demand. And then when people got those units and COVID started to end and people started to move back into Toronto, increasing demand, those units were not becoming available. That supply wasn't coming onto the market. And as a result, supply and demand, again, were not balanced, and landlords, were trying to maximize the returns for their investments. And, there's locations throughout the GTA. There's condominiums that are, in downtown Toronto, right near the entertainment district. And then there are options that are more, further away, areas like Streetsville, for example, in Mississauga, that are very scenic and family oriented. There's, it's important that you understand, what your lifestyle is going to be, because there's condominiums that, for example, have restrictions on pets. There's condominiums that are not going to accommodate you having an electric vehicle. There are some buildings that are smoke-free. You can't even smoke on your balcony, for example. So it's really important to make sure that, we have what I refer to as a buyer consultation to understand, what are your needs, what are your wants, what kind of budget are we working with, where do you work, where do you spend your time. I would then provide suitable options for you that meet your lifestyle, and we can then arrange, to visit properties where I can also share my input as an industry insider on the good, the bad, so that you can really, weigh apples to apples and understand, what is it that you're looking at and what your life would be like living in that community. This is a video from my TikTok account. I'd just like to share it. It's a few points to consider when becoming a first-time condo buyer.
Hey, so are you thinking about getting into condo ownership in 2023? So here's 5 things that you need to take into consideration if you're going to become a first-time condo buyer. The first is the maintenance fees for that building, and what do those maintenance fees cover? The second is electrical metering. So is every unit being metered individually, or are you paying for your neighbor's electricity use in addition to your own? The third is the health of the reserve fund. And we normally put a condition in the offer purchase where that offer will be subject to a lawyer's review of that status certificate, which contains information about the reserve fund. The fourth is tenants. So what is the proportion of tenants to owner occupancy? Does the building permit Airbnb? You maybe don't want to live in a building that permits Airbnbs because that's going to be party central. And the last is pet restrictions and pet rules. So do you have any pets? Are you planning to get pets? What are the pet rules? There's buildings that are just totally pet friendly and buildings that ban pets altogether. So make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Do you want to have more conversations about this? Shoot me a DM and we can jump on a call. My name is Alex. I'm a realtor of Remax Condos Plus in Toronto, 10 years in Toronto's condominium industry, and I work for relationships, not transactions. Thank you for watching, and please follow.
That was really good.
Thanks. So I'm the condo mechanic on TikTok, and alexz.realtor on Instagram. Oops, how do I go to the next slide? Okay, and then so the next slide is making an offer. So a lot of times when we go out and we look at real estate, the advertised price is not necessarily the market price, and then there's other factors that come into consideration as well, like how long has that property been on the market. There might be opportunities because maybe the property was sold conditionally and then the deal fell through and now the property got relisted. So I will determine and make a recommendation for you based on all these factors as far as either what a good offer price is or what a range is for that offer price. Because ultimately, as the client, you're the one that's in the driver's seat. You're the one that's making the decisions. My job and Carmelo's job is to simply guide and assist you through the process but you are very much in control. Some things that we consider is the closing date. So we want to make sure that, the closing date aligns with your mortgage pre-approval time. The closing date works for you as well. I always include conditions like financing, home inspection condition, a status certificate review condition as well, to make sure that the condominium you're buying into is in good financial health. And once your offer is accepted, you would be required to make a deposit within about 24 business hours. So those are days when the banks are open. Usually the standard deposit is 5% of the purchase price. So you want to make sure that you have that money liquid in your account so that you can, get a certified check and deposit it to the listing brokerage. I would then send the agreement of purchase and sale to Carmelo, the mortgage broker, as well as your lawyer. If you don't have a lawyer, we have a network of lawyers and home inspectors that we can connect you with, and then we work towards fulfilling any conditions that there may be, required to make that deal go firm. So fulfilling the home inspection and working with Carmelo to make sure the financing condition can get approved. So let's talk about this.
Yeah. So now that you actually made an offer, bought a home, everything gets sent to the banks, the purchase agreement, the MLS listing, because the banks, again, they need to know what property you're buying. That's where we get an actual approval from them. And I call it conditional approval because there are going to be conditions of that financing. They need to review all your employment and down all your employment documents. So for the time I help you with that pre-approval, pre-qualifications, we may need to update, a pay stub or two. If it's a few months later, maybe update a letter of employment. Same thing when it comes to updating that savings that you have with your bank statements for down payment. But essentially, we're going to have everything up front. The bank's going to review everything, approve it, and tell us the terms and details of that financing. When you actually have the accepted offer, that's when the rate shop actually begins. Rate shop doesn't begin with a pre-approval. It's when you have the actual approval, because that's when, the bank's working with so many different lenders. Rates change all the time. And whoever was the flavor of the week, the bank of the week last week, may not necessarily have the lowest rate this week. So the real rate shopping begins when you have the accepted offer, and that's when we actually discuss the options between the variable and fixed rate mortgages. Everything gets sent in. We get the approval. Once I have the approval, we set up an appointment to go over all the details of your financing. Terms, rates, conditions, prepayment privileges. Because every bank I work with gives you the opportunity to either increase your payment and put a lump sum on your mortgage. I'll give you the exact breakdown with regards to how much money you're going to need for the down payment, but you're going to know in advance. But what to also expect for closing costs for when you sign everything and close everything with a lawyer. So that's the condition approval. Once that's done, we go to the next step and satisfying all the lender's conditions. Most likely anything with regards to employment, your income, down payment, we've already completed that. There can be some administrative things like you have to actually sign the approval. We have to send it back to them. We have to, sign a pre-authorized debit form we have to advise them which bank account you want your payments to come out of. You may want to set up a new bank account. That's fine. It can come out of any bank account you like. At the same time, you have to provide the bank your lawyer's information. If by chance you're getting money from a family member in the form of a gift, this is when we satisfy that condition. That's when each bank has their own little gift letter. I'll help you fill them out. You have the person gets you the money, sign it. We send it in, see the money go into your bank account, and we're done.
Yep.
Most likely, appraisals may or may not be required, and that's where it's during the waiting period. Again, if an appraisal is required, we get it completed. Once all the financing is done, there's going to be a lag, right, Alex? Because I'm doing everything usually within 5 business days. So jam-packed rush, we get everything done.
Yep. Then we're waiting for closing. So.
Yeah.
The waiting period is, a time where we would have things arranged, like buyer visits, for example. That's something that we'd work into your offer. So if you want to bring a contractor in, or you want to, show the condo to your family members or friends before closing, we'd have a few buyer visits set up for that. There may be, Some things that I need to do as a realtor to arrange, appraisers to come in and appraise the property from the lenders. Your lawyer would then also be reaching out to you to sign all the mortgage documents. This is usually done over Zoom, but you can do it in person as well. It used to all be in person, but then COVID made it everything over Zoom. This presentation used to be in person. Then the buyer needs to also obtain content insurance and fire insurance. That's usually one of the requirements from the lender as well. You need to switch over utilities. I'll put you in contact with building management so that you can also register yourself as a new owner. And then you can do things like, book your moving elevator, set yourself up in the resident portal, register your pets so that people in the building, like property management and security, know who you are. And you can, get your things done, book your moving elevator and start moving in. The very last part here is basically closing and getting the keys. So, usually mortgage registration and closing happens in the later part of the day. So
always the end of the day, Alex. Always the end of the day.
Always. I think I've only once had it before 2 p.m.
Again, I always like to say 4 to 5 purchases close between 2 to 6 p.m. Doing this for 20 years, I've had a few close at noon, but expect it to be at the end of the day. Because remember, it's not just your lawyer. There's the seller's lawyer that needs to provide information. Then there's the bank, right? There's a lot of parties involved. So if you're looking to book movers, book them in the afternoon or better yet the next day.
Yeah, the next day is a lot safer to book movers. And then as far as key turnover, so to get your keys, we get some instructions. Sometimes they're available at the lawyer's office. Sometimes it might be a lockbox that's set up and you get the code to the lockbox, and then that would have a unit key in there. And then you can also, and then the rest of the keys would be usually on the kitchen counter with remotes and fobs and maybe a gift or two. And yeah, I mean that's it. Congratulations, you got your condo. Those are the steps. Now there is one tip that we want to share with you because it is RRSP season.
Yes.
So Carmelo.
Yeah. So this is a time when I remember when I bought my first place. This is a tip I learned and it works. When it comes to doing this again, it's RRSP season. I believe up until March 1st, you can put money into your RRSP. The amount you're allowed to put in, I think your accountant will know that. So. But I know everyone's allowed to take out of their RSPs up to $35,000. So if you could, if you have $35,000, Alex, I'm gonna use you as you're the buyer, okay?
Yep.
So if you have $35,000 now, it's in your bank account, it's doing nothing.
Yep.
$35,000 is a good deposit, but to buy property, it's always good to have more, but you need money also for closing costs. So Alex, if you took that $35,000,
yes,
you can put that into your RSPs.
Yep.
Talk to your accountant. Your accountant says you have the room. Boom, you put them in. What happens afterwards? Well, you paid taxes last year on your income. You're going to get a tax refund.
Yes.
That amount of that refund you're going to get, Alex, could be 20, 30, depends on your tax bracket.
Yes.
I don't want to grab a calculator out, so let's just say you're getting 30%.
Yes.
So 30% of 35,000 is roughly $10,000.
Yes.
Within a few weeks, I mean, you overpaid your taxes, your income taxes by $10,000. You're gonna get a refund of $10,000.
Nice.
The money, the money just needs to stay in your RSPs for 90 days before you buy a home, and within 90 days, that $35,000 that you have set aside and just in a high interest savings account became $45,000. $35,000 in your RSPs, and you got a $10,000 refund from the government.
Yep. So you went from buying like a $600,000 condo to a $700,000 condo right there.
Or you could use that money for closing costs, or if we need to, want money set aside for furniture, you can use the money how you see fit.
Yep.
Which is fantastic.
And this is a great tip. It's no tricks here. I mean, this is what this program's for. I've used this as well. When I was a first-time buyer to, increase my down payment and just basically if you're looking to be getting into making a purchase near the summer, you should be making this contribution now, because if you make the contribution after March, then that's already going to be into next year's RRSPs, and you're going to get that refund in 2024.
Yeah. So you need to do it now. This is the time of the year. Don't wait till the last day. The money has to sit in your RSPs for 90 days before the bank wants you to take it out.
Yep.
So the sooner you put it in, the sooner you have access to it,
Mhm.
and the sooner you could, buy and get the keys to a place.
Nice. So I mean, that's our presentation. If you want to schedule a call with us, you can scan that QR code. I mean, we also have our Instagram accounts posted there, alexz.realtor and at Carmelo Mortgage. But we are here, so if you'd like to ask any questions, I mean, I think it's a good opportunity right now. We have some time, and definitely want to answer your question. Oh, I see that there are some questions.
I see there's one question. Dalika, you had a question. Why do these units come back into the market? I think this was when you were talking at the beginning. Dalika, do you want to maybe?
Yeah. So, Dalika, what sometimes happens is if the person, puts an offer and it's conditional on financing, and then maybe there was a situation like they couldn't get the financing, maybe something changed, they got a new car, there was a change in jobs, they're not able to close that transaction, then the transaction doesn't happen. The seller now has to put the property back on the market. So it doesn't mean that there's something like the unit is haunted or something. It has to do with those conditions, and most of the cases it's financing is the condition that causes
except for those buyers that work with me.
Yeah, because you should be well prepared. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Does that answer your question, Dalika?
Because I thought it was related to the rental market, because you said the rental market dropped, then and that's because people left the city, and when they came back, there wasn't as many rental units. Oh,
so you were asking about the supply and demand with the rentals and the COVID?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so basically, when COVID started, a lot of people moved out of the GTA, right? Because they were now able to work remotely. Some people were, leaving the rental, moving to places like Windsor or London so that they can have a backyard and more space and maybe pay less rent because they didn't have to travel into the office. Now, what this did is that all these condos that they were renting now became vacant, and there weren't that many people. Like, I don't know if you were in Toronto during winter 2020, but basically like downtown Toronto was pretty much a ghost town, if you can recall. And what happened is that the landlords were still looking to rent out those units, but there was much more units available than tenants available to rent those units. So they were basically doing things like cutting the price to attract somebody and to get their unit rented out. And then when COVID started to kind of reach the tail end and people started moving back into the GTA, which we experienced last spring and last summer, we had all these people that are now coming into the GTA, but the turnover of units wasn't the same as it normally was, because you now had these people that got their unit in 2020 at a more attractive price point, and they were not vacating this unit to maybe look for something bigger, because they were saying, well, I'm renting this, I don't know, 1 bedroom for $1,700. If I want to get a 1+ den, that's going to cost me $2,500. Because of all the demand right now, I'm just going to stay in my 1 bedroom, and that 1 bedroom isn't coming on the market. And it's like, like the amount of new properties that were being built for people there were investors to look to rent them out. Like all of this, it was basically you just didn't have enough units available. That's what I mean by that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, that's basically what happened. I mean, now what we're seeing is that rental prices have started to, stabilize a little bit. But I remember working with tenants last summer where, a property would get listed and then it would get rented out the same day in multiple offers. A lot of time people were doing things like even prepaying the year up front, believe it or not. Like I had several clients that had to prepay a year of rent up front, $30,000. They had to shell out because they just wanted to get that property, and they were sick of competing and getting beat out in properties. Because when a landlord is considering let's say 5 tenants and everybody has good credit and a good job, then they're looking either for somebody to offer more money or offer more upfront to them.
Yeah, it's amazing how there was a lot of competition in just the rental market. I know there was a lot in those looking at buying, like there's multiple offers and prices would go significantly above the asking price.
Yeah, and just like, in the summer when interest rates started to go up, there were people that were now going on the sidelines. So maybe in the spring or like during COVID, where basically we were getting like free money, lenders were giving like really, attractive mortgages. People are now looking at, okay, interest rates have gone up. Now I can't afford what I was able to afford before. Let's go on the sideline and wait. Well, now these people have like their down payment was ready, their deposit was ready. So they had this money and they're like, okay, well, if we're going to be renting for the next year, I already have money in my bank. Well, I'll just give you, the year up front just to get the unit and not have to go through this hassle. But the thing is that anytime that we have extreme price action in one direction, I mean, like whether it's housing prices or rental prices or stocks, the sharper that something goes in one direction, there will always be a bounce. The sharper that trajectory, the more significant that bounce will be, but then it will start to even out. So one of the things that we're seeing now is, especially the condo market, there's a lot of really attractive opportunities in condos. Like in 2020, you couldn't get a one-bedroom condo that was below the 600,000s. I mean, there were some exceptions in like maybe kind of, older buildings or areas that were not as accessible. But I've seen condos which have been, sold for in the 400s and the 500s. Like these are numbers that we didn't see before. And because condos were impacted the heaviest during, by these interest rates and these interest rate hikes, there's a lot of really good opportunities that exist here. But one of the things that I've heard from, through the grapevine is that there's a lot of people that are getting pre-approved for mortgages right now, meaning that there's a lot of buyers that are looking to get into the market. Can you speak on that at all, Carmelo?
The demand is definitely there.
Yeah.
A lot of demand with regards to domestic buyers and a lot of those new to Canada. His migration is huge. I know Trudeau wants to bring in around 500,000 people this year.
Mm-hmm.
And statistically over the past, let's call it decade or two, for every 10 people that migrate to Canada, 6 come to the Golden Horseshoe. So 6 out of 10 people, they're coming here, Southern Ontario. Right now, the one thing is I noticed is, and Delika, Uvika, if you want to follow me on my Instagram, every Monday I post the Canadian bond yields because that's what kind of dictates where the mortgage rates are going. The Bank of Canada had a meeting last week as they raised the prime rate by 0.25%, but I've noticed over the last 30 days the bond yields have come down by 40 basis points, 0.4%. So the fixed rates don't really follow where variable rates go. So right now the rates are coming down. You could get rates under 5% again, which is nice, and this is spurring people to want to come back in. What's going to happen with interest rates? The truth is, if I knew, I would probably buy lottery tickets and be a millionaire. But the trend is down right now. The pressure of the government raising rates further is anticipated. Let's see what happens with inflation. That's going to dictate everything.
Yeah.
So every Monday on my Instagram, I post, a snapshot of the last week's bond yields, and I get it directly from the Bank of Canada. I'm not getting it from any other media source. And I also provide a 30-day chart of the 5-year bond yield because that's what 5-year mortgage interest rates are based out of.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, buyers are coming back. People are calling. People want to know what they qualify for. Now's the time to kind of see what your options are. Even if you're not buying today, see what your options are. Don't worry about if you're going to buy, 6 months from now. See what your options are. I can help guide you with regards to, for between now and then.
Yeah. And Uvika has a question. How long is pre-approval valid?
Yeah, no, I think I answered that during the presentation. Pre-approval, really, as long as there's no change with your status and interest rates. You change jobs, pre-approval is gone. Your credit, all of a sudden, if you bought a car loan, you got a new vehicle, you got a new expense, new liability, what you qualify for changes.
Yep.
So again, I like to do the pre-approval. Again, banks can do rate holds for up to 120 days. But when you do that with a pre-approval, that means you're actually getting also the keys within 120 days. when you have an accepted offer, you have a lot more flexibility because now you know a closing date. You don't necessarily have to close within 30 days and rush everything. And that's when, if you want to buy, you want to move 3 months from now, the rate will be held. And during that time, if rates come down, which I'm already starting to do for some people I'm working with, I'm already getting them a little lower rate.
Amazing.
So
Guys,
thanks for everyone that joined. If you don't mind afterwards going to our Google Meet group, giving us a review, that would be appreciated.
The meetup group.
Yeah, the meetup group.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you'll get an email. I think the meetup is going to send you probably within the next 24 hours. It's just going to say like, oh, you attended the webinar. How was the webinar? Yeah, I mean, if you could please leave us a review or just a star rating. That way, other people can hopefully kind of see what your feedback was and then also join and benefit from this. Do you guys have any other questions? I mean, we're here to answer anything that's condo related or mortgage related.
If anything, Alex, when we have 2 more presentations coming up this month.
We do. So we have a presentation on February 16th, which is going to be our first time condo buyers presentation. So that's the one that we did 2 weeks ago as well. Thank you, Vika. You're welcome. And then we're also working on a couple of other presentations that we're going to be actually piloting. So one of them is going to be basically like a behind the scenes look at the MLS, which is what I access as a real estate agent to see what properties are on the market, where I'll show you or the attendees of what we see as real estate agents, compare properties, look at what's on the market. And then there's another one that's, sorry, Carmelo, you were going to say something?
No, I'm excited for that one because that's what we're going to be able to show you. We're going to pick a neighborhood. Actually, we're going to pick a neighborhood.
Yep.
What condos are actually available, and I'm going to try to come up with some sort of mock term sheet without even knowing these properties of what to expect for like mortgage payments.
Yeah.
Right? They'll do like a fact sheet, put 5% down or like the minimum, 10% and 20%. What payments will look like with all those options, and explain. You're going to see there's going to be different interest rates.
Yeah. And then the other webinar that we're currently working on is to help first-time buyers save for their down payment.
Yes.
Which is something that we've I think every first-time buyer, we ourselves included, struggled with at one point. So basically, just kind of offering some tips on how to prepare yourself, how to improve your credit score. Like it's about measuring where you are. It's basically a gap analysis between where you are and where you want to be. How do we fill in the middle? And what doesn't get measured doesn't get improved on. So it's important to use these types of tools for this, because ultimately it's really important in everybody's financial security in the future as well, to if it's feasible and possible for them to get into home ownership, because it just creates a safety net and also helps you, grow wealth and also, generational wealth as well, something to pass on to your children or your loved ones as well.
Yep. So thanks for everyone again for joining us tonight. Alex, again, look forward to. I'm really excited about the next one, to be honest with you. I'm looking forward to it.
The MLS one?
Yeah, showing properties and listings, what's available, and
hopefully I don't get in trouble for that. I'm not sure if that's even allowed, but you know what it is, right? It's rather beg for forgiveness than ask for permission.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah. Any final questions here? I know Yuvika said she doesn't have any more questions. Dilaka, any questions from your end there?
No, that's all. I look forward to the rest of the meetings. So
okay. Awesome. I hope you found this valuable, and look forward to connect with you in the future as well.